No, we're getting the same now. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
All right. It's just like that goose and walk around.
Are we ready?
Except if who's calling in so fast. Yeah.
I'm kind of waiting.
Dave Laredo? Who's that?
He's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Multi-bodied.
Oh,
And then there's no need for it to continue, but
it's feeling like a very short
Are we ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay. This is the Finance and Administration Committee meeting of the Monterey Peninsula Water Management District. It is Monday, September 11th, 2 p.m., and all committee members are present. So the meeting is now called to order, and I guess we could take a roll call. I know we're present.
Sure. Director Eisenhart,
Here.
Director Edwards,
Here.
Chair Anderson.
Here. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No.
And are there any public who want to speak?
I see no raised hands, and we have members, staff members here in the room.
Okay. So the first action item is to consider the adoption of the August 14th committee meeting minutes. Yeah, sorry, in your packet.
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, raise your hand for in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. And the second one is adoption of the treasurer's report.
By the way, just on the minutes, are we formatting them different? They read much nicer. Minutes are looking really good.
They're easier to read.
Thank you. These minutes have been action minutes, and when there's dialogue or specific questions that a committee member asks, and I do incorporate that, but it's mainly summary or action.
Great.
Because Joel got in the habit of describing what was said during PowerPoint. PowerPoint's actually there on the website. So,
Plus-
Pull it back a little.
And you know, that actually, I had a question in my mind as I was reviewing the minutes. How long do we maintain the recordings?
Right now, they are in a library. We have them in our Zoom library and then on the website. And so, so we maintain all the electronic files in the YouTube account.
It's on the to-do list to find out really what the state now allows. So certain state boards have gone to no written minutes. And it's like, hey, there it is on the website. You can view the video. And I'm not sure that's 100%. What do you know?
your question is how long to keep the minutes or how long to keep the recording?
Recordings.
There's no obligation to keep the recording. But once you've made it, then you need to authorize its destruction.
I see. Yeah.
It seems risky not having written minutes.
I agree.
Okay, so we are at the second item, which is the treasurer's report. And did you say that Suresh
Suresh is on.
he's on?
here.
Okay. So perhaps he'd like to introduce.
Yep. Good afternoon, committee members. This is the
Hello.
adoption of the treasurer's report for the month of June. We did cut checks in the amount of close to $8 million. June typically are big month for us, simply because what we do is we try to catch up all of the invoices and we try to cut those checks just so that we are, closing the fiscal year, we kind of like balance out the payables to the cash disbursements out. We don't have to carry the liability on the books. It's kind of like a normal practice for us. So that's why you'd see typically Junes are fairly large months. And then $41,000, a little over $41,000 were in conservation rebates paid out during the month of June. As I had mentioned last committee meeting, that the financial statements for June was delayed a little bit, and that's simply because we had some technical difficulties with the financial system itself. But here it is now. Exhibits 2A, B, C, and D are basically the actual treasurer's report, which is Exhibit 2A on the next page. And I'd like to take you there. So we started the month with little over $28 million in the bank. We ended up with $24.2 million in the bank. And as I had said, it was a huge month for disbursements being out. Don't get that much collections in June, except for that second portion of the water supply charge and the property tax, which was about $1.8 million. Typically that comes in May. This year, they've kind of like, for some reason, instead of May, we ended up getting it in June, but typically every year from the county collections, we've been getting it in May. So, and it wasn't by much, it was only by like a day or two. So they must have had something happen there, or they must have changed their disbursement timing. As I said, we closed the month or the fiscal year with $24.2 million in the bank. All those separate accounts have the separate amounts there, a little over $2 million in the, or a little under $2 million in the checking account. Money market has $4.1 million. Life has $9.8 million. And then multi-bank securities, which are all CDs at $8.2 million. So that makes it 24. And then Pebble Beach Reclamation Project, just for reporting purposes, as of June, we had $843,000 in the bank. And then B and C are basically the actual check register for regular disbursements and payroll.
Anybody have a comment or question?
Yeah, just a quick question, Suresh. It's Mark. The $41,000 is for the month of May only, and that's on the conservation rebates. Is that? I mean, I just don't have other months. Is that consistent?
Yeah, we're actually trailing a little low. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that's not fairly consistent, but what happens is that basically happens based on the actual rebate request being made by CalAm customers. So when the request comes in, that's what we do is pay out. But keep in mind, we do wait for CalAm. So what happens is the typical process is we accumulate all the rebates for the month, then we turn around and bill CalAm. And then we wait for CalAm to reimburse that check to us. Once CalAm sends a check to us, then we go ahead and release those rebate payments out.
Okay.
But it varies. I mean, some months, I think your next report you'll see it only had like $500 in there.
Yeah. Okay.
And we're coming up on the 3-year end. So it's always funded by a rate case. Mm-hmm. So their last rate case was funding for 3 years worth. So it comes from rates. It's not like, CalAm's beneficence, but it's scheduled to hit the rates in certain amounts each year. And as we head to the 3rd year on the rate case and the new rate case isn't approved, it's unclear whether we'll use up all the money. And typically they won't authorize new money in the next rate case period until they get approval from the PUC. So
they don't float it.
Right. We end up floating it with your approval. Usually around October, November, we'll come to you. And, if we end up getting verbal assurances or an email assurance from CalAm's president that they will play catch up in the next rate cycle, then we end up floating the rebate so as not to curtail the program. And then we accumulate all of the check requests, and they get hit with the big one as soon as the next rate case period is
It
approved.
seems like
So,
small potatoes to not float it, why they wouldn't do that. But, okay.
well, that's why we've stepped up and done it. So,
I mean, it's not that much money. Right. All right, as long as the ratepayers are getting their rebates.
yeah. Sometimes we do a promotion and it picks up.
Questions?
Not for me.
None for me.
Thank you, Suresh. One more.
Chair Anderson, do we want to take a motion to adopt the June?
So move.
I'll second it.
Suresh?
Yeah, sorry. So I was just gonna say, Sarah and Dave, the feed from the conference room keeps getting cut. So at times I'm not able to hear. I don't know if the other participants are having the same issue or not. But it's basically at times you're just not able to hear what's going on in the conference room.
Thank you.
So, yeah, the next item is the treasurer's report for the month of July. So since we've closed the fiscal year with June, we also were able to close July itself. For the month of July, we cut checks fairly typical in the amount of $1.3 million. There were $500 in conservation rebate. This rebate was not actually a month packet rebate. This was basically just somebody getting a replacement check. Their check had expired, and so we had to issue a replacement check for that. So that's the reason why there was a $500 check paid out for conservation rebates. Exhibit 3A, the actual treasurer's report. As you can see, we started the month with $24.2 million in the bank, and we ended up with $23.8 million. So from now on until December, we will most likely see those balance gradually go down every month. And that's simply because the next chunk of money from the county comes in December. So middle of December, we will get the first portion of the 23-24 water supply charge and property tax charge. So between now and then, we keep writing checks and expect the money in December. So that's when the float will go up again. But balance will decline a little bit every month, not by a whole lot, because we still do get the user fee reimbursement or user fee collection every month. So as you can see, we had $600,000 in the checking account, about 4.5 in the money market, LAIF at about 9.9, 8.8 in the CDs with the multi-bank securities, and then 730,000 with the Pebble Beach Reclamation Project. And then Exhibit 3B and C are the check registers for the regular disbursements and payroll for 3C. We were not able to compile the 3D financial statements simply because, again, we ran into a reporting issue that we were not able to spit it out in time. But that doesn't change what's being reported here for the treasurer's report.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about this report?
Go ahead.
So would that glitch that you had in there that wasn't ready for reporting, would it be ready at the board meeting for the packet?
I've been on the phone with Tyler all this morning. So as we speak, my computer is still being looked at by the Tyler staff. So 50-50. It could probably get resolved. It may not get resolved. But if it does get resolved, definitely I can put it with the board packet.
Okay, and if it doesn't get resolved, we're going to see it at the next month?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's plenty of time to get it resolved. Absolutely. But
All right.
it's just that, yeah, it's a fairly large report that gets compiled, and it's kind of like, it's taking the report and extracting that into an Excel format. So something somewhere in the software is probably broken. I don't know yet, but they are working on it.
Okay.
Okay, so did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Quickly, so just for, well, we don't have any members of the public. But it does look like our periodical advertising or announcements, they're pretty consistent every month. I was looking at these 2 months. It's all budgeted, Suresh. I'm talking about the Pine Cone and the Monterey Herald, or at least the Monterey
weekly.
paper, the weekly. These seem to, just checking in that these are budgeted amounts and they're all, looks like they're roughly the same every month.
Yeah, they all budgeted amounts, and that's part of the outreach program that gets budgeted at the beginning of the year, and so that's how it gets spent out throughout the year.
And I suppose I should ask this question, although we already voted to approve the first, but just wearing my stewardship hat, both this budget, this treasurer's report for July as well as for June, if there was anything that wasn't within a category and parameters of budgeted amount, you would call that out.
Absolutely. We don't actually spend the money if it's not budgeted, or if it's outside the scope of the GM's authority. We do bring it to the board through the committee, then to the board to get those approved. So yeah, if anything is out of line, we definitely do point that out.
I figured as much, but I just wanted to assure.
Yeah, and we even bring things that are inside my scope of authority, if they're big issues anyway, just so you see it.
Okay, thank you. So we could accept the 3 parts that we have. We don't have the 4th part of this yet. Right.
Hey, through the chair, one more question. This bank correction reversal error, is that money to us, or are we paying that out, that $374.02?
So that's actually being rectified. I had my ASD meeting this morning. I got information that it has been rectified. So what had happened was basically it was to do with the board payroll checks. So when we sent the file over to the bank itself, they split up the transaction as opposed to one transaction. But that has been corrected, and so everything is all fine. That money will basically get reversed.
Okay. Just letting you know we're checking.
And that's the reason why, for transparency purposes, we do report everything that's out of the anomaly.
Yeah, because I've seen in June, there wasn't no corrections or anything, but this July, we had some, so.
Right.
Or whatever. All right. I move approval.
Okay. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay. So we're on informational items. Is there anything that you would like to point out? Dave?
If there's something that jumps out that you've got an interest in, we'll walk you through the board agenda if you have any questions on these informational items.
I have no questions.
I have no questions on item 4. Let me just take a quick look. I'm trying to remember what item. Oh, no. I have no questions on item 5. Yeah.
So item 6 is the board agenda. It's a very light agenda, but I do want to let you know that there is an addition. So you see the public, well, let's just walk slowly. The consent calendar are basically the things you just saw, finance and administration. The GM report is fairly normal with nothing in particular other than kind of public reminder under item 8 of the special session of the board on October 10th. And then following public hearing John, will it be an action item, the Rule 160? Yeah. So there will be an action item where you see none at item 14, kind of hand in hand with the public hearing that you see on the quarterly water budget is adoption of revisions to table under Rule 160 in our rules and regs for the ensuing water year. So October 1 is the beginning of a water year. So you will be asked to approve a resolution adopting the annual targets for the water year. So that's a typical September action. We just didn't have it on the draft agenda. So those are really the two only pieces of business of the district, is the quarterly water budget and the adoption of the change under Rule 160.
Okay.
I have a question not related to what you just talked about, but an agenda item that may come up later on. I simply can't remember. What's the first sort of, regarding allocation, water allocation?
Yep.
What's the next thing that we are looking for on the chronology? I just
Yes.
don't remember.
So we're trying to get letters out to the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, and airport by the end of this week, because the rest of the jurisdictions we handled through their population forecast and their RENA housing numbers and data we already have. We will be trying to schedule a technical advisory committee meeting. That was kind of loosely set for November, early December.
And that was a meeting, if I remember, that would not be the one you would recommend if a board member wants to attend. It's the one after that, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
And
There's the
prior,
technical advisory committee and there's the policy advisory committee.
That's the one.
And the
Yep.
policy one is the one.
and prior to the technical advisory committee, we want to present to the water demand committee what our proposed allocation framework is going to look like, so that we can tell the assembled jurisdictions, technical advisory committee people, this is how we've done what we've done, this is what we recommend, to give them a starting point.
Okay,
So-
that refreshed my recollection. And is it fair to say for the rest of this calendar year, you don't foresee an action item on the board
Correct.
agenda for allocation issues?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we expect a report back to the board once we've met with the technical advisory committee, just to say, we presented what we showed the water demand committee. This is how it went over. We're either looking good or the jurisdictions didn't like it at all, and we've got to go back to square one or something like that. So there'll be a report.
Nobody's predicting that though, right?
No, I think the beauty of it's going to be in conjunction with the water supply assessment that we talked about with
Monterey?
the Monterey letter
Yeah.
that we said is applicable to the entire peninsula. That work is going to show a lot of detail so that we'll be able to say, look, this is all data driven. This is based on what we know is going to happen. Number one. Number two, we never intended to allocate water based on your 30-year needs. It was always going to be something shorter looking forward. And we never said we were going to try to get you 100% of your RENA need, because RENA may vary by commitment of each city. So let's see which cities are actually building housing, and then we'll come back and revisit. So the key thing will be to demonstrate that there's enough water to do everything that the community says it wants to do, not allocate it all, and then see what happens. And I hope that each jurisdiction understands that, but we don't. We won't know until we get in a room together.
Which is the technical meeting.
Yeah. But then ultimately, policy advisory committee meeting, you can have a mayor or city council that says, well, thank you, staff, for your attendance on all this, but here's what we really want to see. And if that happens, it'll just extend the time.
What's happened in the past when this has come up?
Well, so we haven't really gone through this since the early 90s. And it was a little bit of dogs lying with cats. And ultimately, Jim Cofer, who was a general manager at the time, said, well, this has been adventure of gathering data. Not all of you have given the data that we had asked for, but we have quite a bit and we have no agreement. So here's what's going to happen. And then people agreed to it until, some time went by. And that would be the last real allocation process. Prior to that, there was allocation, which is then when the city of Carmel sued, and we did an allocation EIR, and that led to the last known process where the GM stepped in and said, let me serve you the pie, and here's how much you get and you get.
So Dave, in your staff report, when you give it, could you throw that in there?
Yeah, what happened in the past?
No, not what happened in the past, that the allocation, that chart that you brought out, I heard Tom Riley got upset about it. I've seen it a couple of times. It needs to bring it back, either bring it up or say, we're here now.
Yeah.
And it's something I believe the board needs to adopt. Because
Schedule
we need to adopt that schedule that you got. We're moving it to next year evaluation or whatever, but that's good. We're getting it done because that's what you're going to be working on next year. But I like to see you bring it back out again and bring it up and show people where we at, because someone's not going to be happy with going down the allocation road. My next question is, when we do your report, is that how water is going to be moved around the peninsula?
The quarterly water budget report is what sources are going to be used.
Okay,
The Rule 160 report is the rule that has to do with rationing, and and it deals with only the adjudicated basin and the Carmel Valley alluvium, and it's just watching how you're producing out of those sources. And if you get ahead of where you're supposed to be, it triggers RAS.
okay. Will that be the place, Mr. Laredo or Dave, that we can talk about the river, taking water out of the river, and Cal-Am not taking all that it's supposed to take out of the river? That needs to come back up. I heard it. No way. That president over there in Cal-Am told us that he's going to pump that basin dry. And he's showing me that he's going to do that. And we got to show him that, hey, we're going to stand by what we say. You're not going to pump it dry. You're going to take what you need out of that river without going into the Seaside Basin. That will come back up again probably on that meeting.
That would be the place to begin that discussion.
Okay, that's right, because I don't like hearing that.
And spoiler alert, it was recently talked about in John's meeting with Cal-Am. And there will be continuing discomfort over the answers that you're going to get.
Well, they're going to have discomfort over what we're going to do. So get yourself up there, Mr. Laredo, you and your staff. So be prepared for that. So I'm putting that out there now, because there ain't no way. And we are done our fact finding, and we have been doing a fact finding for the last 15, 20 years, or whatever that report that you just going to put out say.
Yeah, I think we're learning that the practical realities, even if Dave Laredo could go out and rehab a well faster, he can't go make the permitting authority issue a permit faster. And so we're seeing a lot of that right now.
So that's my comments on the agenda.
Great.
Is there anything else?
No,
We're
and
gonna
if
cover
anything
today?
comes up on the agenda between now and then, it's only a week away, and I doubt that it will. So it'll be a very short meeting, which the downside is it's an in-person meeting. The upside is it'll be a short meeting.
But it's in person and going to be hybrid
Before the storm.
The calm before
for
the
the
October
storm.
10th.
Before the storm?
And they're coming out.
On that meeting, if it's not going to, if it turns out I can't make it on that meeting, we're not going to have a quorum problem. And you're not hearing from any other directors, are you?
It'd be good to not get through traffic for.
We'll see. I'll let you know. Either way, I'll let you know.
Suresh, anything else?
He's turned his sound off, it looks like. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything on my end.
Very good. Ready for Richard?
Okay.
Should we count the tribal song on allocation? Catland never actually filed